Get started. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day. And hello, this is Tom Rocca from KPI Group, and I'm excited to host Connect First's webinar series today. And we're delivering an outstanding customer experience. And I got some great speakers I'll introduce you in a second. Thank you for everybody for being a part of this. I'm actually sitting in Richmond, Virginia today with my friends from Connect on BPO. And it was nice. I'm sitting in our brand new media center, so this is looking really well. And our team knows that we have our presentation up on the big screen, so I'm excited about that as well. So I want to welcome everybody, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and pop that slide, and here we go. So what I'm going to do with the questions, and we can do it a couple different ways, but the way I like to do it is if you take a look over on your side, on your bottom right-hand side, we have all our questions will be answered. If you're interested in anything, go ahead and pop them up there. I'll watch for them throughout the event. If there's anything specific, I'll try to do it within time. If not, we'll wait to the end when I'm doing the Q&As on the back end. So I want to thank everybody, and I think most of us have been through GoToMeeting before and GoToWebinar Viewer. So just go ahead and take a look at that, and they can do it that way. And thank you. So what we're going to do is I have two wonderful presenters. I want to, number one, thank a CH Consulting Group. They are basically doing a lot of work around knowing technology, knowing the industry, and knowing how it all relates. And you're going to hear from Krista Heibel today. I'm going to introduce her in a second. Extremely excited to have her a part of this, and of course our friends from Connect First. Today we have our friend John Franco, so I'm going to introduce them right now. So go ahead. And Krista, you are up first. So I'm going to go ahead and let you talk a little bit about yourself as our friends read a little bit about your background, and you can talk about all the exciting things that you have going on in 2015.
Thank you, Tom. I am excited to be here. You see a little bit about my background on your screen. CH Consulting Group does a lot of work within the contact center space, both with BPO or outsource vendors as well as organizations on their internal operations and strategy. Combined, our team has over 85 years of call center management, direct experience, and we have over 10 years of working with this space and helping with strategy and day-to-day operations. We do a lot of business strategy, business development, project implementations. We are replacement resources as needed at an executive level or any other mid-level of management. And we come not only with the operational background, but we have HR, finance, technology partners. So that's a little bit about who we are. I'm super excited to be here today. Customer experience is something that is all the buzzword in 2015. We're surely talking to a lot of our clients and helping them work out what that means. And I think it's kind of an exciting time in the contact center. It feels like it's revitalizing and creating some new opportunities. So excited about today's topic. Thanks, Tom.
Very good. I appreciate it, Krista. Thank you. And before I introduce John, I want to just a reminder for everybody, we are having another seminar that's going to be a part 2 of this next Wednesday, Krista. So you brought that up so nicely. Same time, same bat channel on Wednesday next week, and we will have a roundtable on these type of topics. So, Krista, you mentioned that very nicely. Now that'll blend in very well as we get to our questions later, and also we can open up the floor a little bit next week when we do this. So, John, let me introduce you now. My friend John Franco happened to be a fellow Atlantan with me, the Regional Vice President of Sales at Connect First. And John, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and the exciting things going on at Connect First.
Tom, thanks for that. As you can see on the screen, a little bit of my background, but I guess what I would say is I'm excited to be here. It's always great to work with you, Tom, and Krista. I especially love our topic today because it's been a passion of mine since I started working with contact centers back in '93. And in fact, if you all recall back in those dark days, I mean, it was all about customer relationships, and then it evolved to customer interactions. And I think we are now focused on the right things, which are customer experiences. And to me, that's the most exciting thing. So we have a great agenda, and I'm excited to get started.
All right, John. Well, then what I'll start to do is actually talk about that agenda, and we'll get started. And we'll move right into this. I want to, number one, there's two perfect updates from two perfect people to talk about this subject. So here we go. Delivering an outstanding customer experience. And the first part of the talk will be talking about a couple cases on improving customer experience. We're going to actually talk about what customer experience is. Customer experience strategies we'll touch on with people, process, technology. Those three terms we've all talked about over the years. And then we have a breakdown into customer experience KPIs, which is one of my favorite acronyms. And then this is one of the ones I was looking forward to, is talking about in-house versus outsourcing. You're going to hear a little bit about their thoughts on that, and then we'll do some key takeaways and questions. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's just go right into case study data. And Ms. Krista, I will let you kick this off, and we'll move it from there.
Thank you, thank you. So we really talked about how to start this. This is, again, an ever-increasingly discussed topic, this concept of customer experience. And I think some organizations are still struggling to define it and determine what it means, and maybe even thinking, yeah, we got that covered, but without really a true ability to assess that based on time or resources. So a lot of kind of going back a little bit to just our background and my background, and what we do a lot of is work with clients on issues from the column you see on your screen on the left, in hopes of creating opportunities from the items you see on the list on the right of your screen. And so there's a lot of good case study data out there today that tells you that, looking for ways to improve in all three of those areas Tom mentioned, and we're going to keep talking about today, people, process, and technology. We're looking to find ways that we can create better efficiency, better profit, better performance, better return on investment. And time again, we know that when we dive into process improvements, technology and improved automation, reporting and analytics, workflow, call flow, and we find areas of opportunity to create and enhance those, that we reap the benefits anywhere from the bottom line to agent retention and satisfaction, which absolutely research shows impacts customer retention and satisfaction. So there's a real case for taking an honest assessment in-house of where you're at in this idea of customer experience around all three of those areas. Just a small example I wanted to share with you is, recently we worked with an organization that wasn't doing CTI. Now, for those of us that have been around since the early 90s, as I age myself with Mr. John here, that seems a little overwhelming to me, that we're not maybe still having full system integration. But that is the truth of a lot of operations out there still today. And we see things all the time where we can go in and identify that type of opportunity. And if you think about a 4-minute average call, and being able to shave anywhere from 20 to 30 seconds off of that time by being able to create a speedier delivery of that call to an agent and do it more articulately and accurately, there's some real benefits in all of those areas. So that is why we're having this discussion today, to evaluate the column on the left so that we can find some of those improvements and more as listed on the column on the right.
Hey, Krista, as you take
the other reason why we're having this, sorry.
Krista, well, as you just take a breath there, if you could do me a favor, Matt asked this nice question. Matt just asked a nice question. He didn't know what CTI stood for, and also any other acronyms you might just want to elaborate just a little bit on. Thanks.
Oh, fantastic. So computer telephony integration for CTI. So oftentimes what that is really important in the contact center space is, just at its simple application, is its ability to screen pop an account. So rather than an agent having to look up, we can pass information from the telecom carrier to the system in a way that allows us to actually have that account appear on the screen as the voice is transferred to the agent, and really create some efficiencies within the whole call flow. I guess on that page, the other one would be WFM, workforce management, particularly required for maximum efficiency and profitability on any inbound environment, to really help align calling forecasting with staffing to really maximize labor expense.
Thank you.
Yep. So the next slide that, again, reiterates why we want to talk about this topic a little bit today is just really outstanding to me. You know, this has not historically always been the case, but as we talk about what the motivation for organizations is in regards to customer experience assessment and strategy, it's not just some of the internal benefits that we maybe talked about on the last slide, but it's also about retaining customers and customer loyalty today. In addition to those statistics that you see on the screen, like there's some very alarming trending regarding customer loyalty trends as it is attached to their experience in working with your product or your brand. There's a real business risk here. According to Accenture's latest Global Consumer Products Pulse research, this concept of the switching economy or dropping loyalty is now a new term coming up, which is really all about consumers saying, you're not treating me well enough, you're not easy enough to do business with, I don't like the way you're trying to resolve my issue, and I'm just going to take my business anywhere. I'm going to take it somewhere else. And with the internet today and globalization, there are more options in front of consumers than they had 20 years ago to pick from. And this dropping loyalty or switching economy numbers are really alarming. Accenture's research says that by 2017, this is going to represent about $1.6 trillion. And that's going to be up 29% from where we are today, which tells me consumers are going to continue to be more and more demanding around how we're providing to them.
You know, Krista, we hear about this every day at Connect First. In fact, there's some real-life case studies that we see that really that are impacted by these numbers or really are reflective of these numbers, especially with regard to technology. You know, a while back we were approached by a mortgage company that was losing up to 70% of their client base because their connection rate was so horrible. The worst part was that they didn't have the reporting tools in place in the company, and they didn't have the insight into what was really happening, and that's why they came to us. But you know, it's real. It's becoming more and more real. Customers are demanding immediate response from their vendors, and as a result, technology is really making a big push into this market and can help people quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think, John, what's really alarming to us too is that there's a gap today between what the consumer is expecting, which again you see on your screen some statistics around that. I mean, they want faster response times, they want access to communicating with you through multiple channels, and they want all of those channels to give them fantastic, timely service. And that creates a lot of challenges on the back end to be able to support everything from traditional voice to chat to email to social media response now, SMS, mobile app and mobile app integration, you know, 24/7 self-support online. I mean, we're juggling a lot more, and their demands are becoming higher. And it's not just bad customer service that can impact the bottom line. This data also shows that 63.9% of consumers consider customer service to be more important than price when deciding whether or not to do business with a company. And 55%, and we've seen this number in more than one survey, says that they would actually pay more to guarantee better service. And it's about that same percentage that will leave if they're not satisfied with the service they're getting. So, you know, we definitely come with a little bit of a sense of alarm to everybody to make sure that they're really on top of these trends and really looking hard and fast internally at what they're doing to meet these requirements.
You know, Krista, I guess at this point it's probably a good stopping point to really ask about what really is the definition of customer experience. How should customers define it, and what's the industry saying about it?
Yeah, well, we've put up on the screen a little definition here from Harvard Business Review, and who am I to contradict Harvard Business Review? I love the language of the sum totality, and some of it, John, goes back to a little bit of what you mentioned earlier, which is this evolution of, sales, funnel management and process, customer service, to, customer relationship management, to customer interaction and interaction management. It's been kind of evolving, and today, customer experience really goes beyond all of those pieces, or it's really a combination of all of those ways that we've historically looked at the relationship and the value of a customer, and it really goes to trending and dynamics around all of those interactions, and it's being driven by technology and consumer expectations. So 10 years ago in an inbound contact center environment, if we were hitting our, standard service level agreements of answering a certain percentage of calls at a certain speed, we thought we were providing good customer service. Today, it goes way beyond that, and that's why it's really important for businesses to take the steps to start to determine, and move from just an adequate process and situation to an outstanding customer experience strategy. So really what all that means is it's a holistic approach to a two-way relationship that's maximizing communication and resolution efficiency for the consumer through any channel that they want to communicate with you through. It's relationship it's not just relationship management anymore. It's really not, it's about allowing them the ability to tell us what they need and what they want. So it's engaging more than it is managing, and it encompasses the life of the customer and our relationship with them through every touch point we have with that customer. This has been changing a little bit, so we wanted to just, kind of going back to what I said about where we were 10 years ago, or on this slide, I guess, where we were 5 years ago versus today. This sense that, customers wanted a decent product at a decent price and good customer service. Now trending is showing that customers want more of an omni-channel, self-service, 24/7, I want it my way kind of a trend. And as I alluded to, this is happening partly being driven by technology, and mobile apps are available to the consumer, and they're on their smartphones, and they want to use them. And everybody's creating their preference for how they want to communicate, and they're expecting the company, the product, the brand to provide that level of service, or they'll just find one that will communicate with them the way they want. Some of what's driving this beyond technology that's worth noting here is also some generational data. So when we look back, 56% or 55% of customer service expectations have increased over the last 3 years. 56% have moved their business from at least one company in the past year due to poor customer service. And more and more consumers are using mobile apps and their mobile phone, even the baby boomer generation. But probably one of the other factors that is making this trend happen so aggressively is millennials. The 80 million millennials currently aged 19 to 37 are poised to outspend baby boomers by 2017. And, millennials, 40% say they would prefer purely online customer service, and 36% say they would contact a company more frequently if they could text. So they have different preferences, and they're looking for businesses to comply with those. So there's just a lot to think about, a lot to assess, and a lot to think through how your organization may be handling this whole bigger picture of what customer experience is.
Yeah, Chris, I would also
Thank
add
you. That gives us a whole piece on it. John, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I thought that everything Krista was saying was great. I would also add that because of these trends, the relationship that we're having with our clients is starting to change as well. and we would encourage the audience to start doing that with their vendors, and that is that our customers are expecting us to understand how the product is going to impact their business. So the days of just going in and demonstrating technology is changing. Our customers are really wanting us to make sure that the product can adapt to how they run their business instead of the other way around. It's one thing to say we want to move to multi-channel, but most companies have processes in place. In one instance, we ran through a customer's call flows, dial patterns, really trying to understand fully how their business operates so that we can make recommendations for how they can improve the process. And the thing that they really kept pushing back on was, we love your recommendations, but make sure that that these recommendations are in line with how we do business today. If there are things that we need to change, we'll take a look at it, but we really want the product to do business. And we think that's a phenomenal thing to consider. In fact, with this client, we were able to configure a solution that met their needs, and that helped them a great deal. So that's some of the feedback that we're getting from clients right now.
Very good, very good. And so now we have a little good feel about customer experience and what it is. Let's talk a little bit about what's necessary to deliver it, and basically what should they focus on? What should the customers, our clients, focus on to get great customer experience?
Well, we kind of came up with our little list here of our 7 impact zones for delivering an outstanding customer experience. Based on a lot of research done by both of our organizations around this issue, these are some of the items that we see coming up, and maybe a great little takeaway for anybody on this call that wants to kind of go back in-house and say, where are we really at in customer experience strategy and execution? Customers expect speedy results. I mean, it is amazing to me as a woman that, again, has 25 years in the contact center space, to see the response times that consumers want from like a social media post, like less than an hour if they're out saying something about your brand or logo. They want the phone answered. They want a response from email. They want an immediate chat. They want it now. They want it accurate. And some of that they don't want to mess around. They want to be a speedy resolution and response. They want self-service, a lot of statistics around either web application or mobile application self-service tools. They want extended hours. They want 24/7. They do not think and operate in terms any longer of 9 to 5. They want omni-channel integrations, and they really expect the company to monitor customer communications through all those channels. So, what mediums are we communicating and allowing our customers to communicate with us, and what mediums do those customers really want, and how do we make sure that that all works together coherently? They really don't want to have to share a bunch of information with you via email and tell you that story all over again when they have to call into your inbound line. And they dislike overly scripted responses. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit, but they want personalization. They want to feel like they are being treated special and that they are not just a number.
Chris, I agree with these. We work through most of these with our clients as well. And in fact, one thing that I would add is that the majority of our customers want even more visibility into their call center process and the insights that come from that. A great example was a lead management client that wanted to easily identify. We were talking about CTI, and this really is a good description of CTI, or that computer telephony integration. They wanted to easily identify the customer that was on the line when a call arrived. They wanted to make sure that it was scrubbed against their database, and they wanted to bounce it against several databases in real time so that they can actually pull all the relevant information about the client before it was presented to call center agents. And in addition to that, they wanted their supervisors to be able to record the calls and monitor all of the agent interactions. And I think that proactive approach is fantastic when you're thinking about improving or building an outstanding customer experience.
Very good. And it's funny here, now we know somewhat these 7 impact zones. Let's talk a little bit about strategy. How should we do this? What would the strategy be?
Well, we get to go back to my favorite 3. people, process, and technology. I think, I know we are all on this call in agreement that these all work together. So we're going to take a look at kind of a shorter list on the people and process and a little bit deeper dive into the technology, because we keep stating that that's a big part of what's driving this whole trend and change. So we have some different pieces, again, that might be tools for you to be able to take back in-house and, again, honestly talk about where are we in these areas.
And Krista, to me, it's amazing how many companies are still struggling with this concept. I agree with you. In the end, the three have to work in tandem. We work with so many companies that are, have been focused on one area. They're doing a lot of great work on the people side. The processes are broken a little bit. And I think that the saying that always jumps to mind is that, you can improve technology, or you can use technology. But the problem is that if you use technology to improve a bad process, the only thing that you're really doing is automating your demise. Whereas if the processes are working correctly, technology will lead to growth. And in fact, we worked with a company that was experiencing very high call volumes a little while back, and prior to our involvement, they had added some technology that they felt was some of the best technology in the market space. They did a lot of due diligence, and unfortunately, they experienced very limited success because they had to adapt the way that they did business to the vendor's technology instead of the other way around. And after trying for 2 years to tinker with the system, to try to get it to run more efficiently, it ultimately failed for that same reason, because they were trying to move their processes to adapt to the technology. And then you add in the whole aspect of high maintenance costs, and just the system was a total failure. So when we approach companies nowadays, we always want to make sure that these three things are working in tandem, that people throughout the organization are involved in the selection process, that we get to meet people within the user community so that we can fully understand how they're going to be using a system. We want to talk with the people in IT and the operations folks that really, truly understand the processes. And processes also come into play with making sure that the reports and the dashboards and everything is working correctly. And only when you fully understand that can you really use technology to help with the automation. So I think these things definitely have to work in tandem.
Yeah, and I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that later, but I am in agreement. I mean, I think, there's responsibility on the part of the company to know what their user requirements are and how their business is operating and what process flow is before they go out and start trying to automate, what they're doing. So we like to help avoid those situations when process and technology crash, right? So let's talk about the people first. This is obviously in a traditional contact center. One of our largest expenses on the P&L is people. We're a service industry. People are important. The first two bullet points you see, you may be thinking, really, I'm on this webinar to talk about recruiting, hiring, and training. Yep, because we still see going into operations day over day that we are not putting the appropriate thought, time, and investment into those critical steps. So knowing that we're thinking about the skills required for the job and aligning our recruiting processes and all of our training in support of creating successful agents, and not thinking that we can cut those corners is a discussion we have oftentimes with some of our clients. But the two more exciting components on the people side, and the two that really are critical to this whole idea of customer experience, is culture of empowerment and performance management. This culture of empowerment goes directly back to this idea of scripted versus, personalized service and messaging. A culture of empowerment is a change for some of us that grew up in this space and have had verbatim scripting backgrounds. How do you hire, train the right people and empower them to give the best service possible? This is a very important question in an organization. It requires good ongoing oversight and management and monitoring, but it's going to give your organization an edge when it comes to customer experience if you can do that. And the second piece is really about performance management. We keep talking about technology. We're going to continue to talk about the technology side of this. It still surprises me to find organizations not using all of the technology and reporting available to them. Data runs in abundance in the contact center on a good system, and that data tells us how well an agent is doing and where to go retrain or where to go reroute calls or where to go tweak the process or the technology or the people to improve performance, and to not have reporting and performance management reports and analytics in place today really may be impacting your bottom line and or client retention more than you think. Research shows over and over again high agent satisfaction is a reliable indicator that the center has optimized people, process, and technology, and that the operations are running well. And having good reporting, especially real-time agent feedback technology tools, helps the center to have a dashboard of the information that managers can monitor and that agents need to have, and they want to see it. Agents are empowered to improve their own performance and feel more in control of their professional lives when technologies are available. They will help you problem solve when you do that. So great research, advanced reporting and analytics can show that giving that tool to an agent can improve agent satisfaction by almost 12%. So very, very critical component there.
You know, Chris, I couldn't agree more. In fact, a while back, Connect First produced a white paper. The title of it is the ROI of agent engagement, and an amazing stat to me, coupled, segueing off of what you just said, was that engaged organizations have the potential to reduce staff turnover by 87% and improve performance by 20%. To me, that's just amazing. But if it's okay, I want to take the discussion around empowerment and performance management to a different concept, and that is, we believe that as vendors, we have to participate in that empowerment process. We believe that a system works best if the people within the organization who have to manage it are empowered to make changes to it. And you would think that's an obvious point, but there's a lot of systems out there that we run across that don't really give the power to the people to make that change. Anytime that they have to make a change, they have to call their vendor. And we believe that companies who start with a focus on the right knowledge transfer so that they don't need the vendor have a better success rate. A while back, we worked with a healthcare company that really got this right, and it's been a boon to their business. They focused on making sure that the technical team fully understood how to integrate the Connect First platform along with their other technology platforms. Because let's face it, most of the companies that we go into have a myriad of back-end systems that have to be integrated together. And we really wanted to make sure that we transferred the knowledge and the APIs. APIs are just integration links or protocols to be able to interface with other systems. And as a result of this knowledge transfer, the customer was successfully able to launch 100 projects by themselves. And this is, to me, that's key, because you have to be able to own a system and make it work the way that you need it to work.
Well, as an operator, I'm not gonna argue with you on that, John. Hey, I vote yay to that. So we move into strategy process. Again, some of these may seem kind of obvious, but I just, to touch on the 4 items again that we felt like warranted a high level of just kind of awareness in this discussion today. I'm going to beat on the strategy jump for a minute. To not have a strategy is to not have a plan, and I think we all know what not having a plan means. We're blown in the wind in that situation. So I think number 1, strategy is required, and that takes leadership, commitment, and budget. Customer experience should be a strategy starting from the top down. It is a C-level executive commitment to having a plan to constantly be moving towards improving this component in your business. And it takes a commitment. This isn't a one and done. We don't just go, okay, we have a strategy now, let's move on to the next thing. There's a required feedback loop in this that we're going to talk a little bit more later about. but it ties into that voice of the customer bullet point. Like, we must be able to measure whether or not the strategy we deployed is working at the risk of losing customers if we don't do that. If the goal of customer experience is to have a plan to meet customer needs, to retain customers and revenue, we have to know how well we're doing that by having some sort of a voice of the customer in place. Obviously, quality is always important, and that's not just, we have some pretty good standard quality best practices as contact centers, but we have to overlay that now through all the other channels that we might also be communicating through. And automation is key. I mean, it amazes me still how often we find manual data entry points and manual processes in place where automation can make things more efficient and give you access to more data, which is more tools to run your business. And there's really should be an ROI to that automation that you should be able to quantify. So we offer you these 4 points from a process perspective to, again, maybe take internally and determine, how are we really doing here?
Krista, as I think about what you said, one of our clients in the newspaper industry comes to mind, and they wanted the tools to automate their agent monitoring processes. I think of, strategies as multi-tiered, or some people may call them swim lanes, because there's a process strategy for the agents, there's going to be a process strategy for the supervisors, and then there's the operational strategy, and then you also have the executive strategy. All of these things have to align, and it's important because without it, you can't really manage multiple campaigns in different markets, and you can't really have a growth strategy. With this client that we were working with, we took a look at all of those strategies, and we made sure that they all work together. And now the supervisors can coach the agents effectively, and it's all about developing those skills that potentially those agents didn't have before, especially as we start moving towards this whole multi-channel world and giving the agents, or universal agents. I mean, you talk about 1993 when we kind of started playing around with the customer relationship management tools. There was a big pushback then about universal agents, and only now we're starting to see that come about. But in order to be able to train your agents correctly, you have to have a process for being able to monitor calls, to train the agents at the point of contact, at length. You want to be able to drive standards of performance within the call center so that you can really move things to a higher level. So I think process is of utmost importance. And once you have those processes right, as we talked about before, you can now move into technology.
Yep, I agree. So that kind of leads us right into where we want to go next. So technology, constantly a theme, obviously a huge part of this whole deal, the technology that's been driving the trending, the new channels that are being created. Here we kind of created a list of, again, components that we think are critical to evaluate in what their role may be in your customer experience strategy and solution. These, I don't know, I know I was asked earlier to maybe go through these. ACD, automatic call distributor, PBX, private branch exchange, I think I'm getting that right. CRM, customer relationship management tool and database, ERP, enterprise resource planning technology and systems, workforce optimization, and workforce management tools. And the rest are probably pretty self-explanatory. These are again critical components. There's obviously a variety of options out there, both premise-based and hosted. We love where cloud technology is going, and I know that there's a little bit of a misunderstanding out there that maybe full integration of all of these are a little more difficult with hosted or cloud solutions. We know that that is not true. We are big fans of that model, particularly in light of how quickly technology is advancing today. But I'm going to hand this over here to John to talk a little bit more about the technology side of all this. It's obviously very important.
Yeah, Krista, thank you so much for that. I think that what I would like to say is, because there's a move to hosted and cloud-based, there's a lot of areas where I think people are making assumptions. And, the questions that you have up here are the questions that we believe a client should ask of any technology vendor. These are just the ones that we believe are the most important. And as the audience reads through them, they may be asking, aren't these all part of hosted or cloud contracts? And the answer is not always. And that's why you have to ask those questions. However, even though technology is hugely important, what our customers value most is control. Connect First is very good at technology, but what our clients love most is that they have complete visibility and access to their data. And that's probably another question that the audience should ask. Will you have total control over your data? And again, it seems like an obvious question, and it seems like it should be obvious that you do have control over your data, but you need to ask the question because it doesn't always happen that way. We get a lot of frustrating comments from customers that come over to the Connect First family because they say, you know, the biggest issue we have is we don't have control of our data. We can't generate our own reports. We can't manipulate reports. We don't really know what's going on. We've kind of lost control. And the other part of the technology puzzle, which is interesting, is scalability. And, you know, especially for clients that have seasonal needs. Now, back in 2012, one of our political clients needed to add several thousand seats to the platform. And at first, they came to us and they thought it was going to be really, really impossible. But we were able to provision in less than 48 hours these additional seats. And within a few days, our client was handling more than 10 million calls a day. You think about it from a business perspective, what that quick turnaround could add to a business is really incredible, especially for clients that have seasonal needs. So technology is incredibly important, and take a look at these questions when you're evaluating vendors, but also think about control of your data, visibility into your data, and then, you know, the whole aspect of scalability. How quickly can you scale up or throttle down depending on what you need for your business. But, you know, the other thing to consider here too, and I know Krista, you're going to touch on is, but how do the channels coincide with technology? How do those two things work together?
Yes. So this is one of my favorite slides. I don't know why, but it is. This is actually research completed by AMX, American Express. And there's so many layers of interest to this to me. Number one, it shows that there is all of these channels we keep talking about, these mediums, these technology options that we want to be giving consumers really do come into play. Secondly, it really indicates that there's some devil in the details here too. For example, you know, a simple inquiry versus a complex inquiry, you know, those preferences change. So, for example, from a financial services perspective, if I'm calling to maybe just check my balance, I really prefer to do that very quickly and easily myself online or through the internet. But if I'm calling in to maybe look at getting a new loan, I'm going to want to talk to somebody. And I think what's really important here in the middle of all this excitement, and I surely do get excited about omni-channel, I get excited about seeing how we as an industry or as an area of the business, right, how the contact center can continue to grow and expand now and integrate all of these things into how we have been for years taking care of consumers and customers. At the end of the day, the phone still wins. If there is any trump card, if there's anything complex, if there's really a big need, hands down, they still want to talk to a live agent. So even though we can get all lost in kind of the sexy of all the other options and these integrating chat more effectively and how we maybe use SMS within the boundaries of regulations and existing business relationships and mobile apps can be really fun to integrate and design, our service center, our contact center, our agents still really matter, and the technology thereon still really matters.
And all this is phenomenal information and great tools, and thank you for kind of summarizing both. And I think probably a nice way to kind of transition into the next piece is how do we measure this customer experience, and how do we even know if it's working? As you can see, some of these customer experience KPIs are important. I hope everyone is measuring something or all these And if you take a look at average handle time and some of the different things about setting up, this all goes back into how you do proper staffing. And you can't improve what you can't measure. So you need to really set that up. And I didn't know if either one of you had any comments around any of these up here. I know, Krista, you may have a couple that you focus on because you do such a great job in consulting. Is there any that actually kind of come right out at you when you're doing some of the questions that come up when you're at a client site?
Well, for me, this list is, I mean, my general KPI list is probably about 4 times this, right? Not always all relevant to every operation, but I just feel, again, overwhelmingly data and the ability to analyze effectively by client, by agent, by team, by center, by shift, all of that matters. And there's power and knowledge in data. And so knowing that you're on a system where you have access to these key indicators around how your business is being managed or how your project is running or how your department is doing is really, really critical. I can't really pick one that trumps the others more to me. I just think this is an area that everyone, again, should just kind of assess and say, do we have access to everything we really need to run our business most effectively? And that answer is different, by the way, depending on who you are. You know, whether you're running this information as a floor supervisor or you're the CEO. Like, not everybody needs to look at all of the same data or the same KPIs, but you know, there surely should be some effective reporting in place for all levels of management.
And John, also from your piece, when it comes to technology, John, I'm thinking of a couple that you may see on here that blurt right out at you.
Well, you know what's interesting is I agree with what Krista was saying. There's a lot more KPIs. We just threw a few out here. The thing that we're seeing that's really, really important around KPIs is segmenting the different types of KPIs. And what I mean by that is, do they need to be done in real time, or can they be historical KPIs, which our definition is end of shift, or near real-time KPIs, which, you know, again, our definition is they occur within 15 minutes of the event ending, or are they truly real-time KPIs? And these are really the most important that have to be delivered within seconds. And Krista talked about reporting, and it's very, very important to be able to segment the types of KPIs and how quickly you need the information. And then from the reporting perspective is, who does that need to be delivered to? Can that be a report, or should it be in a dashboard? Do you need to generate alerts, and who has to see those alerts? You know, these are all considerations. KPIs are important. Every business uses different KPIs. Some use similar KPIs. But the important thing is, how quickly do they need to be delivered, and to whom, and in what format? These are the things that I think are important to consider as well.
And I think that transitions us into kind of our next slide here about the in-house versus outsourcing. If you don't have access to this data, maybe internally, that might right there be a discussion to have around whether you want to make the investment to get to the point where you have access to these tools internally to run your business more effectively, or whether or not it's time to outsource that to a professional that has that in place. And you know, when you talk about KPI management, if you are a client that is using a BPO to take care of any component of your customer experience system or process, then what you're looking at is very different than what they're looking at running the business. Just like there's differences from a standpoint of, you know, within an organization who needs to look at what data. But I think this whole conversation, one of the things we want to just talk about briefly is, you know, this option that exists, and this is a real executive level you know, discussion and decision making that every organization has to make once or maybe even periodically revisit. Do we want to own all of this in-house, or do we want to find a business partner, a strategic partner to help us with some components of our customer experience? It may be too risky to just decide you don't want to do chat because you don't want to learn it in-house, you don't want to deal with it, you don't have the resources, the expertise. That might be a business risk. It might be better off to find an outsource partner to help you with that chat channel. So, you know, there's pros and cons to both of these. We've obviously got some of them on the screen. I'm sure any of you that have reflected on this have had to decide, you know, what is the right solution for us. What I would point out is that it doesn't need to be an all or nothing. I mean, there are very viable, you know, based on ROI and or profitability and or performance-based reasons to maybe keep some components of your customer experience, team and solutions and processes in-house and outsource some portion of it. Maybe that's based on internal expertise and resources or technology. I had a client a couple of years ago that was in the home services-based industry. They were growing very rapidly. They were based out of Washington, D.C., and quite honestly, rent and agents in Washington, D.C. were really expensive, but they did not want to completely relinquish control of their customer service and support. So we found a partner for them that allowed them to keep 50% in-house and grow 50% through a BPO solution provider. With cloud technology today, they can do that all on the same system. They can control that call flow, that call routing. They can be really involved, but they also may be getting added benefit from their partner, or the partner might be providing the technology. But again, there's a lot of points as you sit internally and get honest about what are we doing well, what are we not doing, and what is it really going to take to move from maybe adequate to outstanding customer experience. One of those questions you may want to ask as a team is, do we really want to do this? I mean, we want to do it, but do we want to do it in-house, or do we want to look at some other model?
Well,
hopefully you don't want to create it.
Yeah. Exactly, Krista. Thank you. And like I said, this is a phenomenal update. We are right on time. I actually have some questions, and I'm probably going to pop at both of you, and maybe even some that we can kind of pop in together. But just to summarize, I mean, people, process, technology, come on. You can't do one or two. You got to do all three. Organizational priorities, ask the right questions. I mean, the feedback loop, KPI and analysis, take a look at what you're doing, how you're delivering it, and also take a look at what you're measuring. Again, the big thing is you can't measure. If you don't know what you're measuring, you can't even get a grip on in what direction you're going into. And then thank you for both of you touching on the in-house and outsourcing strategic partners. Budgeting and cost analysis, always a part of everything. I know we have a couple CFOs on the line and so on that are probably doodling over some of those questions as well. So great information. Again, I want to thank both our speakers. This is their email addresses if you want to send them a little note. And also this presentation will be sent to everybody. Or if you want to send either a note to Krista or John, they'll go ahead and make sure you get the copy of this. What I would like to do is pop a couple questions, and we'll keep that up for a second. Just in case anybody, if I miss anything. But let's see, John, I actually have one for you here. One of our questions was asked by our vendors about the technology failover. You hear a lot about premise versus cloud and so on. Does that come with a cloud solution?
You know, that's a great question, whoever asked that, because you would think that it does. And in some cases, we've heard from customers that in order for them to have automatic failover or redundancy or load balancing or any of those things, they had to pay extra for it. And to us, that's kind of ridiculous. You know, we feel like that's why you go to a cloud vendor, so that you can have geo redundancy, in other words, geographical redundancy. So if a system fails on the East Coast, it automatically flips over to the West Coast with no degradation in service levels. So again, questions to ask. It's very, very important that you should ask. We believe that it should be included, but not everybody does.
Very good. And then, Chris, I got something kind of pointed to you. How do you specifically recommend a company to start the process of an internal strategy assessment?
Well, I mean, I think that again, I would say that initiative has to involve an executive level initiative. Somebody at the top has to be involved in saying we're going to take a really honest look at where we're at. I think starting with, do you have a resource in-house that allows you to do that objectively, or do we need to bring in a resource to help us do that objectively? And then, really drilling down into what currently is in place, both what was the plan that we deployed and then what is actually happening, because those don't always line up. And I think we always start with discovery and assessment, right? Don't make any assumptions about where you are, but make a commitment from the top to take a serious look at all these different areas and all these different things as a starting point we've given you today even, and sit down with the team and talk and then verify through what you're really doing, and that's going to give you some gaps, and it's going to allow you to start to put together a roadmap and a priority list of what you need to do to improve that area of your business.
Very good. Very good. John, this is kind of pointed towards you just on people, process, technology. Is there anything about maybe what you think should come first or how you can get them to work together? Comments on that?
Yeah, I think that I would dovetail off of what Krista just said. It's obviously around people. Everybody in the organization has to be bought in to what you're going to be doing. And you definitely have to start at the top. I think Edward Deming has a phenomenal saying, which is to fish things from the top down. And that was in his move Equality. And in essence, what that means is that, in order to really have organizational change, you have to have ownership from the top, and everybody has to be bought into the process. And we talked a little bit about the swim lanes, and everybody has to be part of that movement. Once you have the people bought in, then everybody really has to take a hard look at what they're doing today, what's working, what's not working, and then it has to interface with the other departments, because we've seen some departments that think a certain process is working, and then you talk to the other department and they think it's the worst process in the world. And once you have those things done correctly, then automation will assist in everything that you do. Otherwise, it's just going to be haphazard.
And let me just pop one quick last question, and I see it here. It's mainly about what do you think is going to happen in the next 5 years? Maybe either one of you can comment on this. Just a quick, almost like a summary for maybe both of you on what you're seeing, what's going to happen, maybe a little short term, maybe a little long term. What do you both think? Krista?
I mean, I just see integration, because a lot of what we're talking about today with all this omni-channel, it's not really there yet. We're not really there yet. So if you're on this call right now and you're thinking, holy cow, we're not really there yet, most of us are not. The technology is emerging, and how it all needs to work together for us operators on the back end is emerging. And I think it's just going to be about ongoing integration of how contact centers effectively help businesses and brands manage all these channels.
Yeah, I think Tom, the word that jumps out to me is just velocity. It's amazing if you look back at just technology over the last 20 years, how it's evolved. You look at customer expectations are really in line with that evolution, because the more channels that are being presented to the customer, the more that they want to be able to use those channels. So as we look out the next 5 years, it's really about that integration, as Krista just said, but it's also velocity. How quickly can you adapt to the changing needs of the client? And as Krista said earlier, I mean, this becomes generational. The kids that are out there today have a different perspective on how they should be communicated with. So, companies really need to be poised to take advantage of just incredible speed. And I think Krista hit it well before. There may be companies out there that just can't do it all in-house. So part of it has to be a look at partners and which partners can help you get to market faster. So that velocity really has to come into play.
Very good. Well, I want to thank everybody. This was perfect. We actually have our second part. Again, I want to remind everybody, the second part of this event will be more of an open roundtable on October 7th at 1 o'clock. And I would love to have everybody be a part of that. Just go ahead and register through the same channels. And you can go to our site at Connect First, and you can see that we'll also have this up, and you can listen to it again if you need to as well, and also get the slides. The other event that's coming up around the corner is a compliance series seminar. A lot of folks, and I actually just left Washington, D.C. A number of great things are happening. McMurray, Peterson, and Schuster are going to talk about some of the things that are happening around our industry, especially around some of the fines around the TCPA. And if you want to mark that in your calendar, it's October 14th at 1 o'clock. Other than that, I want to thank everybody. We're right on top of the hour. I really appreciate it. Chris Bauer, thank you to our panelists today. Kristen and John, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate that. And I will just let everybody check out, and thank you. And if there's anything you need, please go ahead and pop our emails or just send anything to Connect First. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Tom.